Hi there, this is JB from JB Cases. So this is a question that I get asked a lot about water and how to protect the case from water. Typically leather these days is, the way that it's made and treated, it's pretty water repellent already. But people ask me about water spots on leather and how to prevent them. Well, there's a couple things. First of all, if you've got a leather case and you get caught in the rain or water gets on it or whatever, what you want to do is just simply wipe the water off very quickly. Just basically, if it gets some water on it, just wipe it off. So let me show you here. And I'll show you a few different leathers as well and what water does. But for example, if a little bit of water were to get on this case, so here I've got a little bit of water on there. What you do not want to do is you do not want to let that water dry. Wipe it off just like this. Just get a damp cloth, just wipe it down, and you're fine. Now, when it dries, there will be nothing left, and you won't even know it was there. The reason that you see spots on leather, and here's a case with some spots, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them on camera, but this is an old leather case where it does have some water spots on it, and what those water spots are is basically dried minerals. Let me see if I can find a couple of spots here that you might be able to see. Okay, I'm not sure if you can really see this, but you might see some discoloration right in here. That's from the water spots, basically. And what that is, what a water spot is essentially somebody got water on here, the case got in the rain or whatever, and they just let it evaporate. When the water evaporates, then it leaves minerals embedded in the leather. That's what you're seeing. That's what's called a water spot. And it's the same as a ring on a table. If you take a glass of water and you put it on a table and you let it sit there for a while, then you pick it up and you'll notice a little ring. That's exactly what that is. Now on some surfaces you can get that off easily by using a cleaner. But with leather it's a little bit tougher because of the fact that leather is porous. It's skin after all. So those deposits will embed themselves just below the surface in the pores. So that's why you don't want to let water stand on leather. Now, having said that, there are different kinds of leather. So this is a Napa leather here. So this is a soft leather that you might find on a car seat or something like that. Generally, this type of leather is finished on the surface so that it doesn't absorb water very much. So you can pour a little bit of water on there. And that's just like anything else, like vinyl or something like that. So you see not much water stays on the surface. Same thing applies. Just wipe it off. However, if water were to dry on this, it would be a little bit easier to remove the spots simply because of the way the surface is treated. So it's a little bit tighter on the surface. Some of this is painted, for example, so the paint will fill up the pores, make it easier. But Napa leather, generally just wipe it right off same way. This is another kind of Napa. Right here you'll see this has more of a texture to it. Same thing applies. Okay, and you'll notice that most of the water just ran right off of that. The rest of it that's on there, you just simply wipe it off. Just like that. Now, having said this also, you can clean your leather goods with just a damp cloth. You don't have to be afraid of water and leather. So I know that that's a popular myth, but you do not have to be afraid. Okay, now here, for example, this is called veg tan leather. Okay, now veg tan leather is what you would think of as for saddles or baseball gloves, that type of thing. Veg tan is made to be able to absorb water because it's often tooled and worked. So for example, it's often worked with designs so that you can carve the designs in there, and then when it dries they'll be permanently embedded in the leather. So you're basically sculpting with 2D. Now, this stuff will absorb water, as you can see here. I'm going to pour this on. You'll notice that it soaks in. Okay? But if you have a leather good that has this and this happens, the same thing applies. Just wipe the excess water off the surface, and you're wiping away all the minerals that would be on the surface. Now everything else is embedded well below the surface, so you won't have to worry about it. And when that dries, you won't see anything on there. So this is exactly what carvers do when they want to carve this. For example, they would get it wet, and then they would make designs, something like that. So when it dries, you'll see the design in there. So, you know, they'll use tools to stamp it. So that's what you want to do there. So now let's look at a finished piece. Most finished pieces will have, this is not all the way finished, but most finished pieces will have a sealer on the top. So that sealer will also help it to repel water. And you can buy sealers. Okay, now you'll see most of that water's running off. Same thing applies. Just wipe it off. This has a light coat of sealer on it, but it doesn't have a finish coat because we're not done with the pocket yet. But all you do is just simply wipe it off just like that, and you won't see any mineral spots on there. Okay, now this is oil tan. Oil tan is basically just veg tan leather with a very, very high oil content to it. And it's made that way so that it can have a soft feeling like Napa, but also so that it will pretty much repel water. So let's show you what oil tan looks like when water goes on there. Okay, now you'll see most of that water just ran right off. You don't hardly see anything, and again, you just wipe it off. And depending on the oil content, sometimes it just beads up and just flies right off the leather. But you just wipe it off the same way, and when it dries, you'll see nothing. Okay? Here's a piece of oil tan that's apart from a case. So this would be indicative of what it would be like on a Q case. And this is an old piece, so it's a little bit dried out. But you can see how that goes, and then you just wipe it down. And at the end of it, you won't see anything. Now when that dries, you won't see anything. Okay, here's a piece that's a little bit waxy. Okay, this is more like a Napa with kind of a waxy feeling to it. Okay, and you'll see the water just run right off of that. Again, just dry it, no problem. Again, don't be afraid of water, okay? If your case gets wet, you're out in the rain or something, just dry it off as soon as you can. Just get under cover and dry it off. Here's a pocket. This is Napa leather. Same thing. Now take a look at that. Just dry it off. Same way. And there you go, and you won't see anything. So now, since I'm here, we should talk a little bit about leather care. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you can buy things to repel water. If you go and you look for like hiking boot supplies or water repellent for leather, you can Google this. You'll find all kinds of products. A lot of them are spray-on. You just spray it right on your case, and then it's got basically a silicone base to it, so it'll just repel water. Water will just roll off. You can get any number of oils or compounds to repel water at different rates. You know, some of it will make it waterproof. Where you cover, there's a stuff out there now called Never Wet. You can cover your case in that, and you could stick it in a 55-gallon drum of water, and as long as the case itself is watertight, nothing's going to touch the surface of that case. So it just will not let water touch it. I have not tried that stuff yet. I may try it, but anyway, it's called Never Wet. There's a lot of other compounds out there, so my suggestion is just do your research on Google, and you can find, you can basically make your case as water repellent as you desire it to be, from completely water repellent to, you know, half or quarter or whatever. Your leather, however, does need to be moisturized at least once a year. It is skin, okay? It's been treated so that it cannot decay, all right? So that bacteria won't eat it up, but it can get brittle and dry out over time. Some of these cases I just showed you here, like this one, you know, I don't even know how old this case is, but once or twice a year I will go ahead and condition it with some leather conditioner just to make sure that the leather retains a certain amount of moisture and won't get brittle and crack. You can see here on the side of this, even though that I have already moisturized this several times, you can see that the cracking effects and the brittleness are starting to come in anyway, right in here. So if I were to continue using this case, eventually this would break regardless of what I did, because it has not retained the proper level of moisture throughout its life. So I would have to end up replacing this part. So keep that in mind whenever you want to take a case and you want to seal it up. Any of these sealers that you put on there, because you may not be able to get moisture back into the case. Okay, so for me personally, I probably would not mess around with putting sealers on my case, the ones that contain silicone, simply for the reason that when you put that on, then you've created a barrier where moisture can't get through. So your case will essentially be drying out from the inside out, and you can't get any moisture back into the leather. So be careful about that, okay? If you're really concerned about it, like I said, you know, water is usually okay as long as you get it off the case quickly. Just dry it off and you're fine. All right, so hope that helps you. This is John from JB Cases again, and just remember, if you don't want to build it, look us up at www.jbcases.com, and we'll be happy to build one for you. Thanks.